Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out.
Our opening words are written by Elizabeth Ketchum, now a retired minister, Unitarian minister in the United States. She wrote, "With gratitude for the freedom to be our true, authentic selves, may we live the spirit of pride. With the courage that comes from challenging fear, may we live the spirit of pride. With sorrow for those who could not be with us today, and in honor of those who died of AIDS or those who lost their lives, may we live the spirit of pride. With grief for those whose pain was unbearable and who left us too soon, may we live the spirit of pride. Looking ahead to the justice still withheld, may we live the spirit of pride. With the confidence that a sense of community banishes isolation and loneliness, may we live the spirit of pride. With the virtual rainbow flag flying high, a sense of beloved community among us, and the joy that comes from making new connections, may we live the spirit of pride."
Please say with me our unison words for chalice lighting. May this flame be our light of friendship and love. Thank you.
Good morning. When our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the in a holy place. We are blessed with love and amazing grace when our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place.
Ages today is called What's in a Name, and it is a true story from the Bay Area Unitarian Universalist Church in Houston, Texas. What's in a name? When do you feel most like yourself? Is it when you're doing something special? When you wear your favorite clothes? We know a child who feels most like himself when he sings silly songs with friends, when he plays Legos in his bedroom, and when people call him by his real name, Ben. It feels good to be called by your own name. It feels especially good if you were given a different name as a baby that wasn't right for you. When our friend Ben was born, the doctor took a look at the baby's body and said, "It's a girl," because Ben's genitals looked like those of most girls. When Anne and Jim adopted Ben, they named him Marissa because they also thought Ben was a girl. Over the next few years, Anne and Jim noticed that their daughter acted more like they would expect a son to act. For example, using makeup to look like a fierce warrior and pretending to be male characters when playing with friends. Handsome brought a smile, but pretty was insulting. In kindergarten, the child's feelings were hurt when a teacher said to use a pink girls folder instead of a blue boys folder. Between kindergarten and first grade, Ben told his parents, "I want to be called Ben and I am a boy." He had named himself Benjamin James after his father. He did not want the name Marissa. He was ready to live 24/7 as the boy he had always been. A word for this process is transition, which means to change from the gender label you received at birth, usually boy or girl, to a gender identity that is really you. Sorry, my nose is running. Transition can mean a new name, a different wardrobe, or hairstyle, and other ways of letting people know the gender you are. Anne and Jim were ready to assist their child's transition, but the transition would be news to people who knew Ben as Marissa. To express himself as a boy made Ben a much happier child than his parents had ever seen. But there were challenges at Ben's old school. The school nurse would not let me use the nurse's bathroom, so I had to use the girls' bathroom, and I felt sad, Ben said. It was a struggle to get some classmates who knew him as Marissa to use his real name. But the Elder family also found love and support. From the moment the family met Reverend Bruce Beisner, his husband Jim, and the others at the Bay Area Unitarian Universalist Church in Houston, Texas, they felt welcome. When Bob Handy learned that Ben didn't have a grandfather, he said, "I'm adopting you. You can call me Poppy." Ben was the first transgender person to be part of the congregation. Since getting to know Ben, the congregation has become active in the fight for transgender rights. And everyone there calls Ben by his real name. The congregation understands. Ben's right to live as the gender he knows he is inside is an example of our UU first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. With the support of their faith community, the elders have stood up for transgender people's civil rights in Houston and traveled as far as Washington, D.C., where Ben posed for photos with President Obama and got a warm hug from Vice President Biden. Ben says the most important thing parents of other transgender children can do, is to be supportive. Because his parents have accepted his transition, Ben, who's now 10, lives as the boy he has always been. He wears clothes just like the other boys wear. He enjoys the same activities they do. He wants people to know that he's just a regular boy.
This is a reading for contemplation. The words are by Amy Zucker Morgenstern. The Hindu god Indra is said to have created a reality as a great net with jewels at every intersection of the threads. Every jewel is reflected in every other, and they are all connected by the infinite, intricate web. The jewels are sacred, and so is the net that connects them. And so I pray. Dear God, you are the in-between spaces of our lives. Where one hand reaches to touch another, you are there. Where eyes meet across the crowd and confusion and find understanding, you are there. Where the spark leaps from one mind to ignite another, that is you. Wherever we connect, you are the connection. Each of us is a jewel in Indra's net, shining like dew in a spider's web. Praise to you, the web that connects us to one another. When we are in the in-between, on our way from the intolerable to the unknown, when we defy the categories that small minds invent and dare to imagine something beyond, when we seek others who are on a journey, on a threshold, on the margins, in any of the shimmering intersections of our lives, when we listen to the possibilities whispered within and step into mystery with trust, with fear, with trembling, may we find peace, for we dwell in your sacred place.
Hi everyone, I'm Catherine. I'm part of the queer community in Hamilton. Today I wanted to sing the hymn, I Know This Rose Will Open. Right now in my community and in adjacent marginalized communities, there's a lot of fear right now. It's a really dark, raw, scary time. And this song, I feel, calls forth not just the pain, but the hope and the resistance. So I know this rose will be open, this like blooming, blossoming, hopeful line. I know my fears will burn away. The imagery of the phoenix rising among the ashes. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. That the imagery of pride and freedom. I know this rose will open. So this will start with a guitar intro, and then I'll sing a solo line. Then I'll split into 4 parts. Feel free to sing any one of the parts, or none, or just listen. Okay, I hope you enjoy it. Happy Pride! I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my fear will burn away. I burn away. I know my soul. I know its wings. I know this rose. I know my fear. I know my wings. I know my fear. I know my fear. I know my wings. I know my soul. I know its wings. I know this rose. I know my fear. I know this wings. I know my fear. I know my fear. I know my wings. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open.
Wow, what a voice. This is a reading by Otto O'Connor. On a holy night in 1969, in an inn, also known as a bar, called the Stonewall Inn, a basement which had no running water nor safe fire exits, queer people of many colors and kinds danced together, for it was the only place where they were allowed to dance, at least permitted to by the mafia who ran the bar. In those days, it was common for the police to frequent this inn, not to join in the dance, the underground celebration, but to send the dancers home and make arrests. When they would arrive, the lights would go on, the people would be lined up, and then all those in drag, all those who were trans, all those who didn't have proper identification were arrested and taken into custody. But on this holy night, that early morning of June 28th, the people said, not tonight. As they called them to line up, the trans women refused to go. And as the police began to beat them and arrest them, and as the people spilled out from the bar onto the street, Christopher Street, a crowd grew to watch. And then, as trans women, lesbians, and gay men were getting arrested, a yell came from the crowd, "Gay power!" And as a trans woman was shoved, she shoved back, and the crowd began throwing bottles at the wagon, and suddenly it erupted. For once, the people didn't line up. For once, the people said, no more. We've had enough. It was almost as if that night, being pulled out of the darkness of the underground at Stonewall Inn, one too many times, they said, I'm ready to be seen. On this holy night, when the power of the oppressed rippled through the streets of New York, when queer people said no more, our world would never be the same. 50 years ago, it was illegal to be gay, to be trans, to dance and to love and to celebrate. And now, only 50 years later, here we are celebrating at a church. And so when we hear these stories of life and love and defiance and celebration, let us also remember and pay tribute to our movement ancestors, many of them trans women of color who led the first rebellion that night. You see, Pride is a celebration of that anniversary, the anniversary of that riot at the Stonewall Inn in New York City, a holy night. So happy Pride. Bring your whole selves, your gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer selves, your drag queen, femme, and butch, nail cross-dressing, nail painting, tutu wearing selves, your genderqueer, gender fluid, agender, asexual, pansexual, quilt bag selves, and all the other identities that are and that will be, and let's have a celebration. Because joy is a rebellion too. And this church is queer, queer and fabulous. Amen.
I have something to tell you. Did you know that I am an immigrant? At the age of 33, I moved to the United States, from the United States to Canada. Being an adult immigrant is bewildering. There are so many culturally specific things to know, things that people who aren't immigrants will learn from their parents. An adult immigrant may not have a local guide to tell them the practical information they need to navigate life's tasks. Sometimes you don't even know what the questions are. You're not aware of all the things you don't know, sometimes social norms, sometimes practical necessities. I found that these experiences are in some ways similar to what I experienced during and after my transition. Life was different in subtle but important ways, and sometimes I didn't even know what to ask about. Perhaps the prototypical example of the transgendered immigrant phenomenon is shaving. My brother learned to shave from my father. I don't really know what all they talked about. I guess they talked about what shaving cream to use and what blade to use and how often to shave, and apparently there are products that you use afterwards. As an FDM, I just started shaving. I suppose if I had someone, if a trans man had somebody they're in a relationship that's already shaving, I mean face kind of shaving, not that leg shaving stuff that happens in the shower, then you might have someone to ask. But there I was in the store trying to figure out, how's this all gonna work? What products do I need? Do I shave with or against the grain? What if I accidentally shave off half my beard because my new electric trimmer was set up to the wrong settings? That actually happened. Well, I figured it all out. And for those of us who are learning as adults the things that we didn't learn as kids, thank goodness for YouTube.
now credited with throwing the shot glass herd around the world, birthing the gay pride movement. Black transgender woman, activist, prostitute, drag performer, Marsha P. Johnson established one of the first safe spaces for transgender and homeless youth, Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, or START. She tirelessly advocated on behalf of sex workers, prisoners, and people with HIV/AIDS, and she had these very important things to say. I was no one, nobody from Nowheresville until I became a drag queen. How many years has it taken people to realize that we are all brothers and sisters and human beings in the human race? As long as my people don't have their rights, there's no reason for celebration, no pride for some of us without liberation for all of us. History isn't something you look back at and say it was inevitable. It happens because people make decisions that are sometimes very impulsive and of the moment, but those moments are cumulative realities. We want to see all gay people have a chance at equal rights. We believe in starting a revolution if necessary. I may be crazy, but that don't make me wrong.
I'm going to share with you today some moments in Canadian history that are important for the LGBTQ2 Spirit Plus community. And I'd like you to listen carefully to the dates. In 1918, Montreal writers Elsa Gidlow and Roswell George launched the first known LGBTQ publication in Canada and North America. It was a mimeographed underground magazine called Mouche Fantastique. In 1968, Pierre Trudeau introduced the Criminal Law Amendment Act, which liberalized Canadian laws around various social issues, including homosexuality. In 1970, two of Canada's earliest known LGBTQ office holders were elected to the National Assembly in Quebec. In 1974, Richard North and Chris Vogel were united in the first known same-sex marriage conducted by, guess what, a Unitarian minister, guess where, Winnipeg. 1979 saw Canada's first pride parades that were held in Vancouver and in Montreal. In 1995, Egan versus Canada rules that freedom of discrimination based on sexual orientation is protected under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. 2013 saw Bill C-279, which extended human rights protections to transgender and transsexual people in Canada. And this year, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, many public pride events are canceled, but being innovative, groups are looking for creative ways to celebrate digital pride events. And all of us hope that next year it's in person again.
This is a quote from Audre Lorde, African-American lesbian poet and essayist. And it's mostly culled from her text Zami, a different spelling of my name. It's called The House of Difference. I have always wanted to be both man and woman. My sexuality is part and parcel of who I am, and my poetry comes from the intersection of me and my worlds. Each of us had our own needs and pursuits and many different alliances. Self-preservation warned some of us that we would not afford to settle for any one easy definition, one narrow individuation of self. It was a while before we came to realize that our place was the very house of difference, rather than the security of any one particular difference. It was years before we learned to use the strength that daily surviving can bring, that we could appreciate each other on terms not necessarily our own. Years before we learned that fear does not have to incapacitate or silence us. My silences had not protected me. Your silences will not protect you. What are the words you do not yet have? What are the tyrannies you swallow day by day and attempt to make your own until you sicken and die of them, still in silence? When we are alone, we are afraid love will never return. And when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard or welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive. When I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid.
Thank you all for those words today. Now let's join in singing hymn 1014. Originally called Standing on the Side of Love, we now sing the words as Answering the Call to Love.
Answering the Call of Love.
The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide, and so every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound, corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. We are answering the call of love.
Rachel, that was so beautiful. Our closing words are by Alex Capitan. Sir Alex Capitan is a lay community minister, organizer, and educator, and editor. Z is the co-leader of the Transforming Hearts Collective and the founder of Radical Copy Editor. And this is what Alex says. So if anyone ever tries to invalidate you or the way you seek intimacy by saying it's just a choice, tell them choice is sacred. Tell them the inherent right of every person to have full authority and agency over the choices they make about their lives and their bodies is a spiritual and human imperative. That there is a word for this, and it's liberation. That there is nothing more worth fighting for. Tell them that in your faith tradition, we don't love people despite their differences or because they can't help being different. We love people because of their differences and because diversity enriches our world and our communities. Tell them that in the final reckoning, there is only one choice that will be judged, and that that's their choice. Tell them that you hope they choose love.
Years of my life is still trying to get up that great big hill of hope for a destination. I realized quickly when I knew I should that the world was made up of this brotherhood of man, for whatever that means. And so I cry sometimes when I'm lying in bed just to get it all out what's in my head. And I'm feeling a little peculiar. And so I wake in the morning and I step outside and I take a deep breath and I get real high and I scream from the top of my lungs, what's going on? And I say, hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, yeah. I say, hey, what's going on? And I say, hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, yeah. I say, hey, what's going on? And I try, oh my God, do I try all the time in this institution. And I pray, oh my God, do I pray every single day for a revolution. So I cry sometimes when I'm lying in bed just to get it all out what's in my head. And I'm feeling a little peculiar. And so I wake in the morning and I step outside and I take a deep breath and I get real high and I scream from the top of my lungs, what's going on? And I say, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah. Say, hey, what's going on? And I say, hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, yeah. I say, what's going on? And I say, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah. I say, hey, what's going on? 25 years and my life is still trying to get up that great big hill of hope for a destination.